Thank you. Thank you for that talk. Considering the abundance of shale in the Bakken Reserve and the Marcellus Shale, which extends to Saskatchewan, why couldn't natural gas, if used prolifically, replace a lot of imported oil, thereby addressing, to some degree, not totally, the so-called energy independence phenomenon? I realize that total independence is probably not even worthwhile, but enough to allow fewer incursions into the Middle East to
Sure.
protect the fields.
Well, this is one of Boone Pickens' ideas, and I think that there is a future for natural gas in the transportation sector. There's no question. The problem, as we were discussing at the table, is that even if you are able to back out a little bit of diesel fuel, as Pickens is proposing in the truck fleet, or you're able to back out some gasoline out of the light vehicle fleet for passenger cars or taxis, you still aren't replacing the entirety of the crude barrel. We still need asphalt. We still need propane. We still need jet fuel. So, I mean, I don't want to get too far into the refining process, but clearly natural gas is going to make inroads into the transportation sector, particularly if Pickens gets his bill passed through the Congress. And that can be a good thing. But I would be careful on any assumptions that it is going to make a dramatic reduction in overall oil consumption in the U.S. or the need for U.S. oil imports. Clearly, it's positive on a clean air basis and some other reasons, but the problem extends to energy density in the vehicle. Natural gas is not nearly as dense as gasoline or diesel on the vehicle, and we have the problem of infrastructure and refueling. It'll take decades.
Hi. You mentioned that because of the catastrophic spill in the Gulf, there's probably going to be political pressures to curtail offshore drilling. It is my understanding that so much of the shale gas is near water supplies, drinking supplies, and I think there was already a problem down in Louisiana, and the New York legislature wants to ban it in upstate New York. Do you, first of all, see an environmental challenge to safely drilling the gas? And secondly, do you anticipate the usual political opposition to doing so?
Well, second question first. Yes, there's political opposition. There's no question. The issue is hydraulic fracturing. The companies, after they drill the well, they go down vertically, they turn horizontally, and they'll have a horizontal segment of the well that may be a mile or more long. And so they're fracturing each segment. They're essentially breaking the segments of the well in multiple stages, is what they call it. The problem is that they're pushing the water and sand mixture and surfactants and some other things down at around 6,000 pounds per square inch. So the concern is for water quality for zones that are adjacent to the natural gas shale-bearing zones. The oil industry, and this is where I part company with the oil and gas business, well, we never had a problem. Well, some of the first stories I published back in the early 1990s in national magazines were on oil and gas-related pollution. For them to say we've never had a problem, I think is disingenuous. There clearly have been some problems, and it is going to be particularly tricky, I think, for New York City, given the upstate New York watershed and so on, how they're going to deal with that. And there's going to be, I believe, probably more regulation of the industry either at the state level or national level regarding this fracturing. And I think they can, but I think that the industry can deal with it properly. And so, yes, it's a concern, and it's a valid concern for landowners and people with water wells. I don't blame them.
Right in the middle there.
Just as a clarification, New York State this summer will be making a decision on the Marcellus, and the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation has already said that they will not permit any drilling for natural gas in the New York City watershed. So that's off the table. But I have a question. You mentioned the modular nuclear distributed energy.
Yes.
And there's been some recent publicity about so-called bloom boxes.
Yep.
Do you have any comments on that? And my second subset question is, what about the transmission system? Upgrading that, perhaps taking that away from the independent system operators and putting that under a national umbrella? And considering superconductors, even though they're very expensive, the new upgraded transmission lines, they would save a lot of electricity.
Right. Well, second question first. Again, there's a lot of discussion about the national grid, and in fact, Manhattan Institute is working on a project on that now. It may happen. There are some security concerns about having a national grid, whether it makes it more vulnerable to interruption or blackouts or terrorist attacks or whatever. The problem, though, with that and a federal authority is going to be the same issue. It's an issue in Texas. It's an issue here in New York, is siting of transmission lines. Everybody wants electricity. Nobody wants transmission lines across their property. So it is going to be a politically fraught issue for years to come. I mean, look at Southern California. They had a big solar project east of San Diego. San Diego Power and Light, I think, is the utility out there. They wanted to bring the solar power into San Diego. They needed a 90-mile transmission line. They've been fighting over it for years. They still can't get it sited in California for solar power. I mean, if they can't make it happen there, we're going to have big problems nationally. The Bloom box, it's a fuel cell. I mean, I watched the 60 Minutes thing, and I thought, well, when is she going to mention that it runs on natural gas? I mean, it was as though, hey, it just runs on air, and it's great. Well, no, it doesn't. So fuel cells are great, and but the problem is cost. And it works in California because of massive state subsidies, but only in California. So their costs are going to have to come way down. Generally, I'm talking about for fuel cells, and I drove a fuel cell Toyota a couple weeks ago out in California. Great vehicle. But I didn't ask how much it cost. I mean, it was ridiculous. That was fueled with hydrogen. But yeah, fuel cells can work, but it's a cost and scale issue.
Great. Henry Stern. Here. Wait for the mic.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is when they dig undersea drilling and they go down until they hit mud, they go down another 20,000 feet. Any possibility any of these things could set off gas, whatever's in the Earth's core, and have the whole place go up like a volcano? I mean, they're going pretty deep, and know for sure what's underneath. Do we have anything to worry about?
I don't think so. I think they're a long way from the core. There have been some. I mean, on a side note, in North Texas, around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there have been some minor earthquakes, mild earthquakes. Some people are blaming that on the shale gas business. Whether that's the case, we don't know.
Second, last question.
Sure.
I'll pass. Oh, is there anyone, you made a very good presentation.
Thank you.
And I don't layman on the subject, but I'm inclined to believe you for a lot of reasons, including that the Manhattan Institute does. But is there any, and you described opponents of your view as deranged. Now, are there any smart people who can get up in the same place and state the opposite of what you have, whether they're right or wrong?
Smart people that are saying the opposite? No, none. Thank you for that, Henry. That was an easy one. I like that one. That one's still going.
The previous question inspires this one. Given that you are so cogently right about this, why are you not a member of the classical liberal community as opposed to the modern liberal community?
Now that one is not a softball. I don't have an answer for that. The work that I present in this book is my own. I didn't give proper credit to the book that Peter Huber and Mark Mills wrote. The Bottomless Well came out in '05. Peter Huber is with Manhattan Institute. It fundamentally changed how I thought about energy and power. And it made me understand that this is physics. It's not conservative, it's not liberal, it's physics and math. And that if I wanted to be honest with myself and continue writing books with smart people at Public Affairs, and I had to write the story based on coming from that perspective and not any kind of a partisan perspective. And so, like I said, the liberal conservative divide, bores me. So I can't answer your question. I gave you the best answer I can come up with.
I'll mail you another time.
Okay.